Hello, everybody. Welcome back to DC Off the Rails with Darren Deepak. Today we have a guest, special guest, Cathy. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I am Cathy. I'm the administrator here at church, which basically means I keep things running behind the scenes. I think that hopefully would be a fair description. I attempt to keep them running behind the scenes. Sometimes that doesn't always work, but I do my best.
That's a good description of what you do, Cathy.
You think?
I think so, yeah.
It's also this job's very much like a swan. On the surface, you appear calm and you're sailing along gently. Underneath, your feet are going like fury because otherwise you're going to sink. But apart from that, it's great.
Very good, very good.
Let me ask you a question, Cathy. What's your sleep schedule like? Schedule?
Schedule.
Oh.
You say schedule?
Yeah. I'm from the north.
I feel like it's two completely different words.
Yeah,
That is
schedule.
completely different words. What is my sleep schedule like?
Yeah.
I go to bed at 11, I go unconscious, and I stagger out of bed at 7.
Wow.
That's good.
No, I stagger out of bed at 6:30. After the alarm
pretty
got off
good,
3 times, and my husband cracking up. That's what snooze is. Isn't that what a snooze button's for?
Snooze is actually really bad for you because when you go back asleep after you snooze, you get into a deep sleep and then you wake up again and you're more tired.
Darren read why we sleep in now.
You're better
really
off
hard.
waking up as soon as your first alarm goes. It's better for you.
I'm popping out of bed all bright and shiny.
I mean, that's a bit of a stretch, but as close to as possible.
It's a big old stretch, let me tell you.
When I worked for Tesco, I was up at like 4:30 in the morning. But I'm not an early to bed person, so I would go to sleep at like 12. So a good night would be 6 hours, and an average night would be between 4 and 5.
No.
Yeah. So when I started this job, I woke up after like my third or fourth day, and I was like, this is what it's like to not be tired. This is what normal feels like. But for 20 years, you're just always tired, which is fine. Until you stop being always tired and you're like, this is what
how bad it was?
Yeah.
Did you get used to it then? Did you
never
actually?
ever get used to getting up at that hour of the morning. Mm-hmm. You just don't. It's not.
Very
and
early.
when you're driving to work and you see somebody jogging, there's just there's the broken side of my heart that wants to do damage to people who get up and run when you have the option of sleeping. Like, yeah.
And that's not a DEC sanctioned comment there at all. That's Darren going off in one.
Yes. How do you feel about exercise? How do you feel about exercise?
How did that
Haven't
answer?
heard of it.
I feel like for me, it's like I like to swim. I like to exercise. I like to try and eat well, kind of. But then I get to a point where I'm getting a new body for eternity that will never die. So, like, there's only so much that I care. But I'm like, this isn't my forever. It's like your baby teeth. It's like your baby teeth, isn't it? Like,
That is the worst excuse I have ever heard.
like, you have to brush your baby teeth,
Let's
but like,
just
you're gonna
slob it
lose
out for
them.
eternity there. Let's go.
Yeah. It's like, hey, I'm not gonna abuse this one, but like, I'm not gonna put so much effort in because for starters, it's dying and getting old. And I'm getting a new one that will never perish. So, come on, guys.
Have you had this conversation with Ross?
Oh, no.
That should be entertaining.
Yeah.
My attitude
Well, is he going to keep his body?
He used to jump up in the middle of staff meetings to do lunges. It was like,
yeah.
what?
He loves an old lunge, Ross.
And he's very fond of his bike, and he goes very, very, very far on it.
I know.
Very far on it.
I have the utmost respect
Totally.
for people who cycle and run long distances, but have zero desire to follow suit.
Well, I was kind of hoping I would grow into it when I grew up, and then it just never happened. And then I realised that's another thing, you don't actually ever grow up, do you?
No.
You just get slightly older version of the nonsense that you were when you were younger.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
It doesn't get any better, Deepak. It's just you get more comfortable with being daft, really. And I had hoped I would grow into it, but it just never happened.
No.
Golf's another one. What is golf all about?
Golf is great.
You hit a ball and you walk after it.
No.
If you don't have to hit it, you don't have to walk.
No, golf is all about the social aspect. It's all about hanging out with people and getting to know them.
Whilst hitting a very small ball with a very long stick.
And getting really, really angry at it. Yeah, it is. Because when you hit that perfect shot, it's beautiful. Like
How long does a regular game of golf take?
4 hours. At
Is
least
it?
that's what my husband tells me. He doesn't come back for 5 or 6. Maybe it only took half an hour. I just don't know. But it's a very long
He's going
time.
to mini golf with
It
him.
is. I would be a
Sneaking some
fan of.
burgers.
I would be a fan of par 3 golf. So
Par
par
three.
3 is like 18 holes, but on a shorter course. So there's one down in Ashford. It's one of the nicest in Ireland. But that would take you a good 2 or 3 hours to get around.
See, why do you golfists also get the urge to invent a new language? I would like a par 3. What was it you said? A par 3 18-hole.
Yeah. So
Like
par 3 means you
what?
should be able to put each ball in 3 shots. So every time.
Don't
So from
make
teeing
no.
off to putting, it should only take you 3 shots.
Don't put me through
So
it
in
again.
long golf, you would have like maybe par 5s and stuff, whereas that's way beyond me.
This is 35 years of my life here I'm
Yeah.
listening to. It's
Yikes.
been explained to me so
Sometimes
many times.
like I used to run a bit, but sometimes I'll walk fast now, and I'm like, I think I'll jog. So I start to jog, and I'm like, I really enjoy this, but the thoughts of doing that every day forever, it just depresses me. So then I don't move for the next couple of weeks until I get over that.
Once you think about it.
Yeah. What's your thought on
exercise?
Yeah.
Not a fan. Takes too much willpower. I don't have
This
the willpower.
doesn't look good, chaps. We're not. This is.
Hey, listen.
This is
Hey,
not good.
we work out our spiritual heart and our theological minds here.
That's right.
They're eternal. My soul and my heart, they're eternal, Cathy. That's what I work out. That's what I spend my time working out.
And can I tell everybody who's listening to this too? If a staff meeting isn't going well, someone quotes scripture, and it brings the whole conversation to a grinding halt because the other people are thinking, they're more holy than me because they managed to incorporate that into accountancy or something, and that's what shuts it all down. Mm-hmm.
Which is good. Yeah.
Quite impressive.
Which is impressive. Because sometimes you need to keep things on schedule, like this talk. So, Cathy, welcome to our podcast. That is
9 whole
mostly
minutes.
that has been 9 minutes
thoughts
of
on exercise.
just an
Oh, we haven't
opener
started.
of an introduction, where we are trying to let people get to know us and get to know other people. So everybody will know. Well, anybody who's a member will know that you are who you are and that the job you do, but they don't know your story necessarily. So from a work point of view, or even from a superficial point of view, they will know you and speak to you if things need doing. But do they so I heard a snippet last week when my friend was here about your story, and I don't know, I think hearing people's stories gives us what does it give us? An insight into people's humanity, that you're not just Cathy,
A
the
nice
administrator,
box to
but
put
that
them in.
you're a person with a story that we are called to love.
I go further than unblocking the toilets. Is that what
You
you're
go,
talking about?
yes, yeah.
And I also unblock toilets. What would you like to know?
Your story. So
How I came to faith?
I don't want not a generic dead story, but like your story about, for the positive and the negative, the impact God has had, or the part God has played and does play in your life. For the ups and downs and the. So your story.
Okay, well then I will tell you how I came to faith, because it's sort of flavours everything about my relationship with Jesus now. I came to faith one night in the bath. Out of the blue, it just happened. It was the week after 9/11, and I had been watching the news, and the terrible stories were coming through about, when people were trapped at the top of the buildings and they were phoning their families, and the people who phoned from the planes knowing that they were going to crash.
Yeah.
And I grew up in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, and there were so many times during the Troubles that we seemed like we were looking into the abyss, and we only just stopped ourselves falling into it. And after 9/11, I thought, we've done it this time. We really have tipped over the edge into evil. There's no coming back from this one, because it all seems so... It's a story now that you look back on and people tell it, and You think, 9/11, we all know so much about it. But at the time, it changed everything. So I had no faith. I wasn't going to church. I'd never opened a Bible. I was brought up a Catholic, but I lapsed from that when I was 12. I just decided not to go back to Mass anymore because I couldn't see the point. And then that night in the bath, I remember putting my head into my hands, which isn't easy in the bath because it involves a wee bit of drowning. So I remember putting my head into my hands and saying, something has got to happen. Somebody has got to help us. And then, like Rachel said, I was just filled with liquid love. It just filled me from my head to my toes in the bath. And the headache went, the tears went, everything went. And a voice inside my head said, everything will be okay. Now, I knew that couldn't be from me, because at that moment in time in history, it did not look like everything was going to be okay. It looked far from that. And so I remember saying to the voice, because as an aside, we were going through IVF at the time, and I remember saying to the voice, is the IVF going to work? And it just came back and it said to me again, everything will be okay, which wasn't yes or no, by the way. And so from that moment, everything in my life changed. My paradigm shifted, because once you start to understand that a God exists, it repaints everything else. And I knew a God existed, and I'm not mad. But he'd spoken to me, he told me he was there, so...
So you became a Christian and were baptised on the same night?
Literally. And there was bubbles involved. And the really funny thing is, too, I'd taken 2 paracetamol before I got into the bath because my head was so sore, and I thought, oh, that's the drugs talking to me. Paracetamol.
The paracetamol.
And as ridiculous as that sounds, when anybody then, because I love alpha and all those kind of things, I love being on the team that delivers alpha and talking to people who are just on that cusp of thinking, there's something more to life here. For me, it's as real as you. For me, Jesus, I remember at the time thinking, it was like I had turned around and Jesus was there the whole time. He'd been there way, way, way before that point. But just at that time, instead of me ignoring him, I turned around and thought, oh, you're there. Okay, let's do this. And so off we went.
And how did your family take it?
My family thought I had been... so I was 36, I was married at that stage. It turned out Graham had a faith. Graham's my husband. And Graham had a faith, but had come away from it in his teens when he discovered women and alcohol, like a lot of people do. So he knew what this all was. I knew nothing. I knew nothing at all. I just thought, this is my new friend Jesus. It's brilliant. So he used to argue with me a lot about that. You don't want anything to do with that. That God's a very jealous God. He's horrible. He's mean and he's evil. Of course, I was all happy clappy at this stage. I couldn't understand what he was going on about. So he found it really difficult, because Jesus was knocking on his door at that point too. And he could see it coming for him. And he couldn't get away. My family, who were Catholics, thought I'd been taken over by a cult and were going to come and rescue me. But it turned out that I was in a Church of England church, which isn't very cultish.
Okay.
Because I asked God to find me somewhere to go to. I wanted to go to a church that didn't depend on my friends being there. I wanted to find somewhere where it could be me and him. So I ended up in this church in the middle of Reading where we were living, and it was Church of England. I didn't know that. I didn't know there was all those different denominations or anything like that. So I ended up there. It's hardly a cult, let's face it, the Church of England. But everybody accepted it over a period of time, because as far as they could see, it was doing me good and not doing me any harm.
Isn't it funny how people, especially when it comes to faith, people freak out? Like, if you want to join a swimming club, or all of a sudden Cathy goes, I'm going to start exercising and joining, everybody's like, okay.
Yeah,
but you're like, hey, I'm going to start looking into Christianity. It's like, people become afraid for you. Isn't it so funny?
I think they become afraid for themselves, because it starts to rattle their foundations.
Yeah.
It's like you're saying, God exists, and they're thinking, he better not. Because if he does, then and then. But there's also this concept that there's a whole set of rules you've suddenly got to come under, that you've got to stop doing this and you must do that. And it's not, for me, it was freedom. It was just simply, it made me more me. Now, other things do happen along the way, as those of us who have been down that journey know. Let's say you're a smoker. When you become a Christian, you don't have to stop smoking because you've become a Christian. But if you've had a couple of conversations along the way with God and you start to realise that you're maybe not doing the best for your health, you may change your mind. Mm-hmm. But there certainly seemed to be this idea from outside that I suddenly had to follow all different kinds of very, very strict rules.
Well, we're the people who don't. That's what we're known as. Oh, you don't drink, you don't have sex, you don't do drugs, you don't have fun, you don't laugh, you don't. And it's like, no, it's about, like what you said, it's a freedom. It's about a relationship that just changes your whole perspective
freeing you
on
up
life.
To be the person that you were always intended to be. And so and somebody else explained this to me at the time, that she said, this was a single lady who kind of I got to know very well back at that very beginning time, and she said how much she was in love with Jesus. Now, I found that hugely uncomfortable. You're in love with this guy who sits in a big fluffy cloud and all of that kind of stuff, because that's still how it seemed to me. But over the years, like any relationship, it develops. So I would say I'm in love with him as much as I love my husband, or I love my children, or I love any other relationship that I have.
How long did it take Graham?
Another 18 months.
Okay.
Of fighting. Mostly when he'd had a few beers, because then he became very vociferous about it.
Vociferous. Great
very
word.
Verbal and loud and vocal about it. Because he was afraid. Because he could feel at that point, he was so, and he won't mind me saying this, ashamed of where he had been and that he had come away from that relationship himself. A bit like being unfaithful, I guess.
Yeah.
He knew it was coming. He said he could just feel God coming back to get him, and there was nothing he could do about it. And then I persuaded him to go on an alpha course. We have two very, very good friends. We've been friends for 30-something years. And it was actually Elaine, the wife of our friends. That
was very difficult, Cathy.
Around that, who had come to faith. She was the first. She had come to faith about 2 years before me. So she was talking to us about it and all of that kind of stuff. And I remember thinking, she's got taken over by a cult, so I couldn't understand either. So she helped me through those early stages. By this stage, both of our husbands, Graham and Colin, had started to argue with both of us. So we persuaded the two of them to go on an alpha course. And there's a part of the alpha course which is the Holy Spirit Day, where you ask the Holy Spirit to come into your life. And Graham could not be found anywhere. Graham had to go to the toilet. Graham had to get a cup of coffee. Graham had to find some literature out in the hall that was much more interesting to read than actually come into the room. Until I got to the point where I said, "Stop being so rude. Get in here now." And when it came time to ask the Holy Spirit into your life and ask Jesus to take over your life, Graham was on the floor in a big crying heap, like a big baby. So
so gentle. So gentle and loving, Cathy.
I know. So I remember sitting down looking at him and "Oh, I got you." And everybody else from our church took care of him, and I just went, "Yay."
Like Jonah, kind of like hiding away, and then...
He tried everything to stay out of the room that day. And then there was no turning back after that, because that was the two of us. So
how did you end up here?
How did we end up here?
So you've been here for 3 years?
5 years. We've been in England for we've been in Ireland for 5 years. We've been in DEC for 5 years. I've worked here for 3 years.
Okay.
It's like 30, but I've worked for 3. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we took off to... we came to faith in England, then adopted 3 children, then came back here because Graham got a job here.
Okay.
And how we ended up in DEC was we searched out all the churches online and just kept praying about it till we felt that one was right. And we tried here, and we tried Urban Junction.
Oh, yes, in Blackrock, yeah.
And to be fair, Ross Campbell, it was a very strong youth church. Youth church? Was that what would you call it?
Youth program.
Let's call it program. Okay, youth program that really convinced us. And then it was backed up by just that, that feeling of calm that you get from God when you've been asking Him to help you, where everything settles into place in such a kind of way, almost like it's already a done deal. And you think, okay, I trust you. And then we pitched up, turned up here, thought it was a Jehovah's Witness building before.
Did you really?
Couldn't find it. There was
It's
nothing
so
to
funny,
say it
isn't
was
it?
a church.
Because when I was here last time, the trees were huge down the front. So I'm like, look, we need to let people see us because we look like a cult building. We look like Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses. Not that there's anything wrong with those people, but people are afraid of what they don't know. So if they can't see us and don't know us, so that's interesting. So what do you love most about DEC?
DEC is like family. And we're blow-ins like so many of our congregation. We are, our family's still up north, so we're down here by ourselves. But DEC has stepped in and has been our family, and it's intergenerational. So you literally have your granny and granddad, your auntie and your uncle, your cousins, everything, and we all muck in like that. It's always been its unique selling point, I think.
I think so too.
It's just family.
Yeah. Good. That's good.
And you have to take everything that comes with that.
You have to, You can't choose your family, as they say. Yeah, you do. Yeah, there are goods and bads too, families.
Much more good.
But a lot of love and a lot of acceptance and encouragement, and
the encouragement, I think, is really
to work for somewhere where they want you to do well, like that the people are on your side. Is just coming from a faceless corporation that I worked for, like to come and work for a church where they're actually on your side and they're like, hey, we want you to succeed.
And when I first came to Faith, I was a project manager, so I used to go into companies to help them do changes. And we were mentioning this earlier, it's a very, very stressful job. And I just remember in those early days thinking, if I could just work for somewhere where they prayed in the meetings, life would be so much better. And lo and behold, here I am.
Yeah, and quoting scriptures in the middle of meetings, which you were so happy about 2 minutes ago, Cathy. Very good.
Ask me another one.
Well, Deepak and I, before we started... No, this one's easy. This is easy. We were just chatting about Christmas. He asked me how I felt about Christmas, if that makes sense. So Deepak was going to tell me... So he was a Christian growing up in India for the first 12 years. So what that was like. So what was Christmas like for you growing up as a kid for the first 12 years?
Regular.
Was it?
No, probably not regular for you, but regular for me.
Okay.
Bad description, probably, but it wasn't very exciting. I didn't believe in Santa Claus. Did you guys have Santa Claus growing up?
Yes, we did, yeah.
I never had Santa Claus growing up.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
I was brought up by cynics. No, but yeah, so I got presents, but I was just always told that it was from my parents.
Okay.
And, we
did you went for the whole
church.
Christmas tree? Is Christmas a big thing in India?
Why would you assume it's not, Darren?
I'm not assuming anything. That's why I'm asking. So if I was assuming, I would say Christmas is not a big thing in India. So let me rephrase that. Is Christmas is the traditional, what we would be used to as Christmas, a big thing in India or not?
Okay, so
does that make sense? Is that a good?
Well, India is a Hindu country, so Christmas is not really a big thing. But there's other festivals that happen during Christmas time.
Okay.
So, it's the holiday season.
Okay.
For sure, but it's not wintry. It's not cold. So it's just like a day.
So do you prefer Irish Christmas or India Christmas?
I'm going to be honest. I don't feel anything for Christmas.
Christmas
means
forgot
nothing
about
to
this
me.
heathen who
Other than the
prefers
Jesus
Halloween.
part. I'm so excited about the Jesus part.
Yeah.
Church is
Are
fun.
you?
Church is fun on the Christmas day,
Okay.
and then going home and playing with my toys. Good time.
Okay.
I'm going to do some Legos this year, I bet.
I thought you were going to say when you were a
And
kid.
he's not joking.
But
Oh, no.
you mean
I'm
now.
going to build some Legos.
Good.
But,
Okay.
yeah, other than that, it doesn't do anything for me.
I
Yeah.
love Christmas. I was saying to Deepak, I would love if we could celebrate Jesus' birthday on a different day. So if we could just,
Keep
so we
Christmas
could
as
just let
Christmas.
the world have Christmas.
You should move
Because-
to India.
No, because like if you think about it, like God coming down as a tiny baby who's helpless, like that's unbelievable if we just take the time to think and meditate on that for a little bit. But Christmas is so busy and presents and kids and family that you don't actually, and then it's over and you're done with Christmas. So to actually take the time to go, like, this is what we're celebrating. So I would love to have presents on a different day. Sorry, I drank Pepsi Max. I would love to have presents on a different day because I like Christmas. I like the gifting and the family and the dinner, especially the dinner. The dinner is my favorite. But to just have a day where we like, so we're like with Jude and Levi, I'm going to like have a little birthday cake for Jesus, and it's so cheesy and Christian. But I kind of like, he likes that, and he's like, so when I'm talking about God to him, he's so funny. I talk about God and then Jesus being God. No, Jesus is God's cousin, Daddy.
Oh.
So I'm like, okay.
Let's rewrite the Trinity. That's
Yeah,
good. Yep.
yeah. I mean, so still family, but just not immediate family. So, so just for him, yeah, I would like to just celebrate Jesus on Christmas Day. What's your take on Christmas? Are you a bah humbug?
Adore
Oh,
Christmas.
good.
I adore it, but to the extremes, it drives my family mad.
You're not a November Christmas decorator. No, that's not Christmas.
I start playing my Christmas songs in the car from at least the 1st of September, possibly June.
But
if I
you're
can
not
get
sick
away
of
with
Christmas
No
by
way.
Christmas.
No, do you know what? I'm completely over and done with it by, what do you call it, St. Stephen's Day? It's
Yeah.
not Boxing Day here, sure.
No,
it's not
Stephen's Day.
By St. Stephen's Day, I'm ready to take a tree down and do everything. Because I've been celebrating it for 6 months beforehand, I adore everything about the season. When I got saved, it just added to it as far as I was concerned, because then I really, really knew the reason for the season. So it just made it even better. I love everything about it, absolutely everything. The presents, the songs, the food, the people are slightly nicer to each other. They make a wee bit more of an effort. I'd like to think that's because it's Jesus' birthday. I'm not sure they would agree with that, but I like to think that's the reason for it. I just adore it, every last bit of it.
I have a friend like Rachel we were talking about, because I asked her, so like, do you have a crib? And she's like, no, we don't have a crib. She's like, we've never, and because I grew up having a crib and like you put Jesus and like so my dad, we'd all Christmas.
Oh, I was so confused about.
Oh, crib. Sorry, yeah, sorry. I meant like a nativity displaying crib, not a baby's cot.
I grew up in a crib.
So I grew up on Christmas Eve, every Christmas Eve. It was so embarrassing, but it was great. Like you'd have your shower and you'd have your new PJs on as a kid, and not as Deepak as an adult playing with Lego, and you'd have to sing a song under the Christmas tree in front of everybody, and it was great. But then we would go out into the hallway to where the crib was, and my dad would read the passage about Jesus being born, and then we'd pray, and it was just a really special time that you assume, like, you were Catholic who didn't really believe in God, so you just assume that's the way it is. Whereas I'm the opposite. I grew up knowing that there was a God. So to talk to somebody who's never been... So I was like, do you have a nativity crib? And nativity crib, not just a crib. And she was like, no, but like I really want to get one. Like this is going to be my first proper Christmas. Where and like there's an excitement to Christmas having a new important meaning that you say that really resonates. That's like, oh, I'm so jealous. Like I want it to be my first Christmas.
All over again,
Yeah.
And to go back to, of course, being brought up in a Catholic house, we always had a crib
Okay.
nativity, manger, whatever you want to call it. And my mum used to hide the baby Jesus under the snow until Christmas Eve. He couldn't go actually into the... So he used to hide under the cotton wool, which was the snow, and then it'd get reproduced, and not reproduced, he would get produced and put into his proper little bed where he would lie with his wee halo around him from only Christmas Eve onwards.
Yeah, because my brother put the manger up, and I was like, why is Jesus in the manger? Because he's not supposed to be there on Christmas Day. So, yeah. The Americans do a kind of a less biblical version. I don't think it's anything to do with it, but you have a pickle. And it's a pickle ornament, right? No, for real. It's a pickle ornament that you hide on the tree somewhere because it's green with the green tree, and whoever finds it gets a prize. So it's like, hide the pickle.
I love that.
Yeah, I know. It sounds so wrong. But
I don't even know what to say.
I know. So we have this like pickle in a jar, an ornament pickle in a jar, and like we hide it on the Christmas tree for people to find. My parents used to hide bars of chocolate in the Christmas tree.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
A pickle?
Yeah. Like it's not a real pickle. It's like it's an ornament.
The pickle.
A decoration.
An ornament pickle.
It's a decoration pickle. Would you call them ornaments or decorations?
Ornaments, you say?
Do you?
It's a very old way of saying it, yeah.
Because Americans call them ornaments,
Ornaments.
but they call what we call ornaments decorations.
What?
Yeah, it's so weird. There's a few of them.
What do you call an ornament?
An ornament is like your mother's good press over in the corner that has all of her good ornaments in it. What they would call them decorations, and they would call Christmas decorations ornaments. And another one that they have, I know this has gone a little bit off, but the only one that's really confusing is a onesie, because in America the onesie is the vest.
Oh.
And for us the onesie is the outfit.
Yeah.
And so their actual vests have like the company name Onesie on it. So when I'm like, hey, can you grab me a onesie? It's so confusing.
That is completely
so that was very...
confusing.
So most of them are just different words that you use or whatever, but that's actually the same word for two different items.
So anybody who was coming here for some holy scripture or something like that, you've got onesies instead.
You got onesies instead, yeah. But you've also got Cathy's wonderful story of just how... Isn't it...
How to get saved in the bath.
How to get saved in the bath. You okay, Deepak?
And I think God has a sense of humour because he's condemned me to have to say that for the rest of my life now. I got saved in the bath.
Do you wonder, like... I know God is outside of time, so we won't get too crazy. But do you wonder if he's like excited in anticipation of this moment in your life? Where he's like, oh, this is coming, it's coming, it's coming. And then you're just aware of him, and there's just this excitement for him that you're now his.
Because you're a parent like I am.
Yeah.
You know what it's like to see that delight in your child's eyes. You're as excited as they are.
Yeah.
I'm also experiencing that now. I've got a puppy. I'm seeing how excited the puppy is, and I'm delighted. But you do.
Yeah.
You, as a parent, you are equally as delighted, if not more so, because you know more, and he knows an awful lot more than we do, just about how good that moment in the bath was going to change my life.
And I don't think that we acknowledge God's excitement enough. Like that he gets excited.
Well, if we're made in his image, everything that we feel must be magnified a million times for him. We do some strange things with it, but he would probably never do. But if he must cry, he must laugh, he must...
I think Zechariah says he dances, doesn't he? Or Zephaniah, one of them said he dances. Can you imagine God dancing because you became a Christian?
Yeah.
Like, isn't that crazy that he just loves us that much?
That much, yeah.
It's brilliant.
And nobody else will ever love you that much and that consistently anywhere else in your life.
Yeah.
As much as you would like your husband to be that, we're all only human. They can't be that, but he can, and he's never going to fail you.
Because there's no selfishness involved in it. There's a wonderful song, God doesn't love, he doesn't give his heart in pieces. In Pieces, I think it's called. It's an American song, I don't know where it comes from. But it's just about how God's heart is not like our heart. He doesn't love us inconsistently. He doesn't hide part of himself away. He doesn't love us anxiously. And it just makes you think, when we think of God loving, we put our own broken love on him. Yeah. So, that's exciting. Isn't it great? Like, God's church wouldn't survive without the Holy Spirit. Because we just kill each other.
Do you know, and I love, let me get this word right, apologetics. I love the arguments with people who don't believe in God, so that you can come back and say, well, did you think about and did you realise? Because my sister who lives in Texas, is so anti-God like she really does. She wanted me to get a brain scan actually to see
Really?
if there was anything wrong with me. So we have these debates, and one day she said to me, "Oh, you've got an answer for everything, you Christians." I said, "Actually, we do. We have the answer."
But I think also about genuine like Jesus followers is we're not afraid of questions, because it makes us question, is that real or not, which I think is really good and can throw people that we don't like, don't you dare ask that question. But it's like, no, invite questions, ask any question you want. You just may not like the answer, because we don't always know the answer, because God hasn't told us everything.
No, and I think his shoulders are more than broad enough to take anything I can throw at him. Any day that I feel a doubt, he's going to be there and he can take it, and we'll figure it out together. I also find he never forces me into... because that's what people, particularly back in those early days, where, oh, you'll have to do this, and you'll not be able to do that, and you'll not be able to do this. I've never found God forcing me into anything. He does tend to gently unpeel your life like an onion. Just as you think you've got one layer sorted, he says, well, let's look at this one now.
Yeah.
Okay then, okay, let's sort that one out. So it's an ongoing job, isn't it?
It is. And he's so patient.
So patient.
He's ridiculously patient and kind.
But you need never get too far ahead of yourself and think you've got it sussed, because you don't.
No.
Ever.
So you're moving soon. Is that correct?
To my new house?
Yes.
Yes.
Where is it?
I am. It is Newtown, Mount Kennedy. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm. Apparently it's the longest named town, because I used to live in Newtown, Mount Kennedy.
Oh, did you?
I did, for my sins, yes. I loved it there. So you're moving there, so your neighbours are going to be Christianified soon.
I would hope so.
Do you have the tracts to put through their letterbox already? Isn't it great though, like that you're going to have a new area, that new people are going to be exposed to people who love Jesus?
Don't you worry sometimes, though, that people don't, a couple of times people have said to us, "Oh, I didn't know you were Christian." And you think, "Oh,
I know, yeah.
did I not show it?"
Yeah.
But it usually tends to come from a place of them being pleasantly surprised. Oh, you're really quite normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see, I like to keep my faith very, very simple. I know we get into theological debates during the staff meeting, an awful lot of which goes over the top of my head, I will be honest, because I want to keep my relationship with Jesus, with God, with the Holy Spirit, as simple as possible. I just know them, I love them, they love me, anything else can go from there. And so, if I am talking to other people who are not Christians, I would hope that somehow that will get out there without me having to say, "Where are you with Jesus?"
Yeah.
A guy did that to us. Graham had only just come to faith, and that's why I took him along to this church that I had been going to. This poor, he kind of got Graham up against the wall and said, "Where are you with Jesus now?" I was like, "Oh dear."
Getting out of here, friend. Let's go,
I
Jesus.
extricate myself from your armpit, because
Yeah.
he had to go under his arm to get away. So I don't find that works. Why would that work with any relationship?
Yeah, it's funny because I want to know. I always want to know where people are at, but like, there's no like non-cheesy, awful way of saying, "So how is your friendship and relationship with Jesus?" So that's why I ask people for their story, because people will tell you their story much more quickly than if you. So if I'm like, "So how's your relationship with Jesus?" It's like so awkward, and then you feel like you have to be doing well.
Yeah.
So you can't be honest.
Yeah.
And say, "Well, actually, this is my story, and I'm like an onion, and I'm being peeled, and it's not always nice, but God is so eternally patient." So I tried to rephrase it as, "What's your story?" So this is our story corner, and then people who don't have a relationship with Jesus, then that's not part of their story, and then it opens it up for you to tell your story about your life, because Jesus was the great storyteller, and God, the Bible is a story. So.
Don't you feel we're programmed though as Christians to, you said, and if their walk isn't with Jesus at this moment, that's okay.
Yeah.
Most of us are programmed to think that's not okay. That's not
I mean,
okay.
it's
really
okay for now. Like, it's not our job to make people be Christians. It's our job to share to be disciples, and part of that is sharing him with others, not necessarily in your face. Like we have, our neighbour came over, he moved in last year, and he's just retired. So we sat down for dinner, and we always thank God for food, and for Mammy. Mammy's always thanked for, never Daddy, just Mammy. And the three of us were sitting down the other night, just me, Judah, and Mammy, and he says, Mammy, I'm so thankful for you. And then he turned and looked at me and he goes, and I'm so thankful for God. All right, buddy, thanks very much. Now I know where I stand. But we were sitting down having dinner, and he held David's hand. He put his hand out because we hold hands, and he insists on it. So he held David's hand while we prayed, and it was just non-intrusive, and we just said it like, because Judah prays with me, so it's just simple. And then he says, David, God says I'm a precious guy. And people don't always know how to do it, but it's non-intrusive.
Yeah.
And then they ask questions. And you'll find like we're terrified of people finding out or what people will think, but people are mostly interested. If it's not, here's a tract, I'm on my soapbox, you need to hear
Where's my
this.
sandwich board? Let me go and get it from the cupboard.
I think Jesus always loved people and genuinely cared about them, and that's why they listened. And I think if we forget that step,
then you're forcing it, then you're making it all unnatural, and that doesn't fit well for us either.
No, but yeah. So we wanted to keep this at 30 minutes, but it's at 45. But it will probably be edited down, I would imagine. But
few minutes.
Yeah, we were going to look at mentors this week, but we just talked, and that was nice.
Oh, yeah.
It was.
Oh, good.
Yes.
So
We blithered.
Blithered.
Blethers. Is blethering a good word down here? It's very much a northern thing.
I've never heard it before.
Never blethered?
Never.
You've never blethered?
No, I've
When
never
you do
blethered.
You blether on a
I'd say
regular
blabber would be a word down here.
Blabber. Yeah.
Blabber.
Yeah, well,
Blabber,
blethers,
blabber.
Yeah, the Northern Irish version of it.
Okay.
I find that quite tricky, actually. Sometimes I feel like I need subtitles because I'm from the north. What do you mean, yeah?
Sorry. What I mean is, I was watching a bit of Michael McIntyre, and he was talking about traveling all over the world, and he said the one people who need subtitles are, and I thought he was going to say somewhere far, and he goes, are Northern Irish people. He said he was in an airport, and he, by their sneeze, he knew they were from Northern Ireland. All he could hear behind him was Achoi! So, but he said that Northern Irish people need subtitles. I don't think you do. I would need them more than you. I mumble and I have a low tone, and I speak fast. But you don't. You're very clear.
Well, we lived in England for 18 years.
Okay.
So, to be fair, our Northern Irish accent has had to be tempered by being able to be understood by English people, which meant we had to slow down a lot and talk like this quite frequently. We've speeded up a bit since we came back here, but when we first took the kids home, we found that actually the children didn't understand what we were saying as soon as we got off the plane in Belfast, because immediately we went right back up in speed again. So I couldn't understand why the kids were being so agreeable with me, because they kept just nodding. And, they didn't understand a word I was saying. And so over the years, that's what used to happen. We'd go back to our ways, get back to England, and take about 3 days to get back acclimatised again. And then the children did explain to us that if they didn't understand what we were saying for quite a few of the trips
Isn't
home.
that gas? And so you're kind of a mix between the two here?
I think, yes, this is a slower version than if I headed back up to see the family. So this is a slightly slower version, but faster than England,
Okay.
yes.
Well,
yes,
Deepak will be
yes.
editing this, so if he feels that you need subtitles.
Yeah, I'll put you on 0.2 speed.
You probably have to. I wish I could do that in life. That would be really, really handy.
Yeah. Well, Cathy, thank you so much
you're very welcome for
coming on to
blethering.
Off the Rails. It's good to have you, and it's good to get to know you better.
I'm not sure you know me any better after that.
I know you deeper. I know you deeper. I know your story more.
Okay, good.
So that's
Good.
important.
That was a well-spent 45 minutes then, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you for coming on, Cathy.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And see you next week, people.
All right, then. See you. Hey, Becky.